Welcome. This is all minus one quick shots. Folks, there is a lot of talk about this stimulus package. As I explained to you yesterday, it is really worthless, valueless. It is not going to really do anything to help anybody out. But the bigger picture around this is the big omnibus bill that was passed. Now, this is just business as usual. The Congress and the Senate tend to do this all the time, and right now is the time of year that they are looking toward the federal budget. That's why the National Defense Act needs to be passed, because we are not supposed to have a standing army in the United States. The founders never intended for that. So every year, the National Defense Act has to be passed again. The Congress has to pass essentially a budget. If you recall, a few years ago, for political gain, the federal budget was used by the Democrats against Trump. Why? Well, because most people are too dumb, too stupid, and too unaware to know what is actually going on in Washington, D.C. And it's essentially the pirating and hijacking of our national sovereignty for corporatist globalists and for, let's say, certain global government organizations like the UN. So if you go far enough back and you read the goals of certain people, from about 100 years ago, and you read up until today, if you read a book like Tragedy and Hope from Carol Quigley or anything like that, you'll see that there is a plan for a world government. And I know, it's conspiracy. Bill has become Alex Jones. But I'm not Alex Jones. I'm just simply telling you what they say, what they write about. So these omnibus bills that are passed are just needless spending, generally. And most of it, what people are complaining about, is foreign aid. Foreign aid is very common. I'm glad that people are talking about it because it's making folks aware. Many folks are not aware. I wasn't aware my entire life. I mean, fortunately, I got some information pretty early on. I was about 25 or so. Back when the Ron Paul Revolution started, I read his book, his campaign book, The Revolution, in his 2008 presidential bid. And I woke up. I woke up to a lot of things. And I'd already been studying a lot about the occult and like I said, global government organizers, if you would, the New World Order organizers. But what I think what we're really seeing here, what we're really seeing going on is that all the spending's going out and they can't even spend on the American people, can't help out the American people. What we're seeing is a destruction of the dollar purposefully. And they continue to do it. And they say that Keynesian economics is the reason why, except for Lord Maynard Keynes was not a particularly brilliant guy. What he was very hubristic and central planner. This is the idea of technocracy, folks, that the very smart, intelligent people can plan everything out perfectly and, direct the ant colony that we call our nation. It's ridiculous, but this is how the elites think. And when we're sending out this much foreign aid and we've inflated our currency drastically, 35% of all money was printed this past year. If you look into the Federal Reserve's 2021 agenda, they said 35 to 60 or 65%. I can't remember the number exactly. But it is there. It is out there. It is on their website. In fact, I probably should have brought it up, but I'll do it another time, probably later on this week or next week since the Christmas holiday is coming up. In any case, you have to understand that inflating money supply means that the people at the top, they get the money, they get the purchasing power, and by the time it gets to you and I, which usually takes about a year or two, our money becomes devalued. So this is the whole debt slave program, the Federal Reserve program. And once that happens, and then they'll go, oh no, our economy collapsed, we don't know why. Guess what happens? A new world reserve currency comes in. Who is the big world power right now, aside from the United States? Well, it's China. And China actually has a lot of investments and holdings in the United States. A lot of properties owned by China in the United States. The Chinese are basically ravaging Africa for resources. They own a lot of resources and property in Australia, to the point that they actually were threatening to withhold hospital beds during the whole COOF pandemic in the beginning. Go fact check me on that because it's true. It was in the news. Uh, it, it, you have to understand, folks, that the globalists think that the world is overpopulated. They see environmentalism as a big deal. They're trying to get people behind that, and they want to essentially depopulate the southern hemisphere. This is all part of the UN Agenda 2030. And they want all the migrant workers and all the people to move up to the northern hemisphere, to the Western nations, if you would, to the civilized world. Not that those other places aren't civilized, but it's easier to move folks in their mind and that already have infrastructure built up and depopulate those other areas so that they can allow essentially the earth to heal, or the resources they need to be mined, or whatever, to be resourced. It's a really kind of sick thing that they are playing God with all of humanity. So, in any case, back to this omnibus bill. Don't be surprised that you're going to see more and more coverage of things like this as people are waking up more and more with how the government of the United States actually works. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We aren't a republic anymore. I don't think we're a democracy either. We are a corporate oligarchy. We are a plutocracy. But we are not a republic anymore. That has been long gone since the Civil War. Basically, any vestige of the republic was then destroyed later on by FDR. And that is a fact. We don't pay attention to our Constitution. If we did, we wouldn't have illegal drug wars. When we decided to have a war on alcohol, a banning of alcohol, they had to pass an amendment, the 20th Amendment, and then later on the 21st. Why? Well, because it was given that it is an inherent right for people to do what they want with their own bodies. It's a given within the Constitution. In fact, it's part of the 9th Amendment. The right of the people shall be maintained, or with the people. And then the 10th Amendment is the rights of the states. The single biggest blow after the Civil War to the Constitution was the outlawing and confiscation of gold. We haven't been on a gold standard since the 1930s, since FDR decided that that was the old way. And we are completely off of it now, or off of the foreign exchange gold standard, since Bretton Woods was scrapped by Nixon. Things, by the way, folks, that neither one of those individuals had the constitutional right or power to do. But as the panic was on because of the Great Depression, and later on with Nixon because of war and because of inflation, the people allowed it to happen. And this is what tyrants do. And I don't believe that Donald Trump is any way, shape, or form a tyrant like the media would like to smear him. But Joe Biden will be. I can promise you. And people say, well, it's not really Joe Biden. I even say that. No, but most presidents aren't really them. You think Barack Obama was really Barack Obama? No. Barack Obama was a bunch of globalist corporatists who were going along with him being the figurehead. That's what he was. The figurehead. What do you think George W. Bush was? What do you think Bill Clinton was? I think the last real independent president we had was Reagan. That's why he was, they tried to assassinate him. That's why he was shot at, frankly. Before that, maybe Kennedy. Look, we are going in a certain way as a nation for a very long time. And it's not about American sovereignty. It's not about the Constitution. It is about bringing on that world government. So when you see these omnibus bills like this, and you see all this stimulus for the American people and all the foreign aid for everyone else, what you're seeing is that the United States is using its money machine, the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private institution, by the way. It's not federal in any way, shape, or form, and it is completely controlled with almost no oversight. And there is a board, the government board that looks at it, but they don't ever audit it. They don't do anything. It's run by its own devices, and it's meant that way because it's globalist. It's meant to essentially bring the rest of the world up at your expense. And folks, I don't think things have to be that way. But Americans have been sold out for decades. That's why people did like Donald Trump. That's why they liked the new trade deals. That's why they liked that he got rid of the TPP, that he was harsh with China. All the manufacturing now is done in China to the point where, when the coup hit, we didn't have all the drugs that we needed. That makes us weak. We need to be an independent nation of other nations. We need to be a bastion of liberty. Will that ever happen? Will that ever return? Well, unfortunately, I'm pessimistic about that. Of course, I also have, my beliefs and my faith as a Christian, and that this is the way the world is supposed to go. And we're living in those times, in my opinion. I know people throughout the centuries have said the same thing, but I think that they weren't looking at a world, they were conceiving a world in which we live in now, which is a giant global economy that is interconnected and has many, many players within it. So again, the Omnibus bill is just normal stuff. It literally is. And you just keep electing your little D's and your little R's, and you don't pay attention to what's going on at all. I mean, maybe not you. Maybe you have woken up, whoever's out there listening. But this is business as usual, folks. This happens every year, happens all the time. There's no author to this bill. I can guarantee that. Age wrote it, and they were lobbyists wrote it, and all kinds of people wrote it who weren't actual senators or congressmen. And that's a problem too. We should amend our Constitution to not allow bills like this. But again, why would that really even matter? Because no one listens to the Constitution in Washington, D.C. anyways. But with all that said, folks, this has been all minus one quick shots, and I wish you all well.